Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody, Maharaj.
Hare Bol. You can put your camera on if you want, you know. It's not mandatory.
I'm sorry, hardware problem. I don't have the hardware.
Oh,
But not yet, I may get.
okay. So, anybody remember anything from last week? You got on mute. You've got on mute. You're muted.
I think I'm on the wrong canto.
Fourth canto.
Fourth canto. Which chapter have we finished? 7.
Yes.
Yeah, we know Daksha got ahead of a goat.
That's right, yeah.
Please, may you repeat the address properly?
We are on fourth canto and we're just about to start chapter 8.
Yes, so it's, so what happened is Daksha was beheaded by Virabhadra, and then all the demigods went to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma told them to apologize to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva accepted that. And then, so Daksha performed another sacrifice and invited Lord Shiva. And of course, it tells us about Daksha's prayers of, remorse to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva didn't take it so seriously for himself, because he knows that, he's a Vaishnava. And, he did it for the benefit of the individuals. So Krishna doesn't take, he's not hateful of anybody, but he actually has to, he's like a father who has to rectify and prevent us from, going further into difficulty. That's his main object. Of course, Krishna he's not a stone. He, like in Lord Nrsimhadev, he becomes angry in certain things, and but he's always, we always see how I will see now when Dhruv Maharaj in his pastime, how he's always in a jolly mood, always in a pleasant mood. So so what's the connection between Lord, the pastimes of Daksha and Lord Shiva and chapter 8? Chapter 8's, is where Dhruv Maharaj is insulted and he goes to the forest to meditate. And so, before it mentions about Dhruv Maharaj, it mentions about Adharma, the dynasty of Adharma. All these bad qualities are also coming from personality, which is so Adharma. We'll read about that, how these things gradually degenerate into going to hell. And then these are all bad qualities, which by hearing about them, we'll become repulsed and we want to avoid them. And so in this chapter, he's talking about the sons of Brahma. Previously, he was talking about the daughters of Daksha, and Prasuti married Daksha. Now, the daughters of Swayambhuva Manu, and one of them was Prasuti, who married Daksha. And the most eventful thing in that of those all those offspring is that they had the 16th daughter or 13th, I forget which, was called Sati, Lord Shiva's wife. And so, you know, Vidura asked about that, and he told the pastime of what happened to Sati, the 16th daughter of Daksha. And then, so now he's going to talk about, you know, the grandfather or the father of Swayambhuva Manu who had sons. Some of those sons married Swayambhuva Manu's daughters. And so he's talking about this, he's starting to give the dynasty of the sons of Brahma. And the first, he starts talking about the son called Adharma, or irreligion. So, you know, Lord Brahma creates irreligion also. And so after that, we know that oh, I don't want to do those things. We know to avoid. So immediately he goes to the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, who's Mahabhagavat, the pure devotee. And we immediately hear about somebody who's completely the opposite. So we can take guidance from the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj to do the right things. Okay. So who's the first to read then this week? Can't remember it. Can anybody remember? Anyway, we'll start at the top. And it's Samsini Mataji. We're starting with chapter 8.
Oh, are you still there? Sorry, my phone just threw up something. I don't know what. Hare Krishna. The great sage Maitreya said, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Because I have to duck my head to read and then you might not get it on the speaker.
Just lift the book up. Anyway, as long as you're talking to the computer, we'll hear it. But when you start talking...
Yeah, it's the phone at the moment. The great sage Maitreya said, the 4 great Kumara sages headed by Sanaka, as well as Narada, Rubu, Hamsa, Aruni, and Yati, all sons of Brahma, did not live at home, but became Urdhva Reta, or Naishtika Brahmacharis, unadulterated celibates.
Urdhva Naishtika Brahmachari, yeah. They don't get married.
Thank you.
They maintain the semen in the body for a life. Urdhva.
Irreligion was also Brahma's son, and his wife's name was Falsity. From their combination, 2 demons named Damba and Bluffing and Maya, or cheating, were born, and they were taken by a demon named Nuriti, who had no children. Maitreya told Vijur, O great soul, from Damba and Maya were born greed and Niriti, cunning. From their combination came children named Krodha, anger, and Himsa, envy, and from their combination were born Kali and his sister Durukti, harsh speech.
When we say Himsa, we usually mean means violence, so like equated as being the same.
O greatest of all good men, by the combination of Kali and harsh speech were born children named Mritu, death, and Biti, fear. From the combination of Mritu and Biti came children named Yatana, excessive pain, and Niraya, hell. My dear Vijur, I have summarily explained the causes of devastation, and one who hears the description 3 times attains piety and washes the sinful contamination from his soul.
So yeah, if someone's become adharmic, then, you know, this is falsity. It's not actually the proper way to act. We have to avoid the truth. And so we bluff. And then, you know, we're just cheating ourselves so we become covered by Maya then. And in that illusory state, we try to acquire as much as we can in this world for satisfaction. You know, so we develop cunning and greed. And then we become frustrated because it doesn't work. And so we become angry. And envious of those who are actually also trying to do the same thing, we become competitors. And then we start to fight and quarrel and harsh speech. And this leads to rebirth in this world or death. And that's fearful and painful as well. So, you know, and then we just regress. We remain in this hellish condition of life and regress in the material world. So it's all from adharma.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry. So these, the way it's described there, obviously, these children are born. So these are actually children that are born with these qualities. So that, like, is it like these are the qualities of the material world in a way? How does it work in that sense?
Well, everything's got personality. So, you know.
So, say if you take fear, for example, Bitty, if Bitty wasn't born, does that mean there would be no fear in the world? That quality.
Anyway, you know, it says that fear personified is frightened of Krishna. So fear as personality, there's somebody in charge of that particular sensation. So that's what it's saying. And I don't know technically exactly how it works, you know. It's a little bit above my technical ability to understand it anyway.
It makes sense because you hear even before Krishna consciousness, so you have the god of death and you have different gods of different kind of characteristics. And I suppose it's a similar thing in a way.
Yeah.
They are the representative of what we just call normal, everyday things, really. But there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, we forgot. I mean, in this present age, we're forgetful. We think it's all mythology, these different gods. And we think everything's just like, you just have to work and you get what you work for. And the material world's just a microcosm or a macrocosm, which just, you know, it's just mutating and producing, you know, living entities, and they're actually developing intelligence. So there's no need to worship any, but they don't, you know, we haven't got a clue. But no, it's not like that. Prabhupada said everything's personal, everything's controlled, you know. We unless we actually are grateful, we'll lose it. So, you know, we have to perform yogya to get what we want, the pasya. Otherwise, everything starts to go pear-shaped. Okay.
Can I just ask something there? You mentioned all the myths. It just reminded me of the Greek mythologies, you know, all the gods. Did that take place on the earth, or is that of another factor? Would you know?
Well, I'm not, you know, an historian, but I don't know much about the Greeks. I don't think many people do. I mean, as far as I know, it was on this planet, you know. There's the Egyptians first, and the Greeks, and the Romans. They're all different, you know, civilizations who prospered at a certain time, just like the British Empire prospered for some time. The Mughal Empire, you know, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, they all had their day. And, you know, beyond 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, the Greeks were at their day. And, you know, they worshipped the demigods. Zeus is Indra. And like that. It is, it's Cupid, isn't it? What was the equivalent of Aphrodite? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, carry on. If you come up with the answer, you can let us know.
I'll let you know. Maitreya continued, O best of the Kuru dynasty, I shall now describe before you the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu, who was born of the part of the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Swayambhuva, can't say it very well, Swayambhuva Manu had two sons by his wife Sati Rupa, and the names of the sons were Uttanapada and Priyavrata. But because both of them were descendants of the plenary expansion of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they were very competent to rule the universe, to maintain and protect the citizens. King Uttanapada had two queens named Suniti and Surushi. Surushi was much more dear to the king. Sunuti, who had a son named Dhruva, was not his favourite. Once upon a time, King Uttanapada was patting the son of Surushi, Uttama, placing him on his lap. Dhruva Maharaj was also trying to get on his lap, but the king did not very much welcome him. While the child Dhruva Maharaj was trying to get on the lap of his father, Surushi, his stepmother, became very envious of the child, and with great pride she began to speak so as to be heard by the king himself. Queen Surushi told Dhruva Maharaj, "My dear child, you do not deserve to sit on the throne or on the lap of the king. Surely you are also the son of the king, but because you did not take your birth in my womb, you are not qualified to sit on your father's lap. My dear child, you are unaware that you were not born of my womb, but were born of another woman. Therefore, you should know that your attempt is doomed to failure. You are trying to fulfill a desire which is impossible to be fulfilled. If you at all desire to rise to the throne of the king, then you have to undergo severe austerities. First of all, you must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and then, when you are favoured by him, because of such worship, you shall have to take your next birth in my womb." The sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vijay, as a snake, when struck by a stick, breathes very heavily, so Dhruva Maharaj also, being struck by the strong words of his stepmother, began to breathe very heavily, and because of great anger. When he saw that his father was silent and did not protest, he immediately left the palace and went to his mother. When Dhruva Maharaj reached his mother, his lips were trembling in anger, and he was crying very grievously. Queen Sunuti immediately lifted her son onto her lap, while the palace residents, who had heard all the harsh words of Surushi, related everything in detail. Then Sunuti also became greatly aggrieved. This incident was unbearable to Sunuti's patience. She began to burn as if in a forest fire, and in her grief she also, just like a burnt leaf, and so lamented. As she remembered the words of her co-wife, her bright lotus-like face became filled with tears, and thus she spoke. I might need to put the light on a moment. I'm struggling with the light here.
Okay, so
Sorry.
who's next? Mahatma. Mahamantra.
One second.
Text 17.
Okay. Oh, I was already on mute. 17. She also was breathing very heavily, and she did not know the factual remedy for the painful situation. Not finding any remedy, she said to her son, "My dear son, don't wish for anything inauspicious for others. Anyone who inflicts pain upon others suffers himself from that pain." Suniti said, "My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi is so, because the king, your father, does not consider me his wife or even his maidservant. He feels ashamed to accept me. Therefore, it is a fact that you have taken birth from the womb of an unfortunate woman, and by being fed from her breast, you have grown up. My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. Therefore, if you desire at all to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother, Uttama, then give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Suniti continued, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so great that simply by worshipping his lotus feet, your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, acquired the necessary qualifications to create this universe. Although he is unborn and is the chief of all living creatures, he is situated in that exalted post because of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom even great yogis worship by controlling the mind and regulating the life air, prana." Suniti informed her son, "Your grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, executed great sacrifices with distribution of charity, and thereby, with unflinching faith and devotion, he worshipped and satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By acting in that way, he achieved the greatest success in material happiness, and afterwards achieved liberation, which is impossible to obtain by worshipping the demigods. My dear boy, you also should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Persons seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart, and without deviating for a moment, engage always in his service. My dear Dhruva, as far as I am concerned, I do not find anyone who can mitigate your distress but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose eyes are like lotus petals. Many demigods, such as Lord Brahma, seek the pleasure of the Goddess of Fortune, but the Goddess of Fortune herself, with a lotus flower in her hand, is always ready to render service to the Supreme Lord." The great sage Maitreya continued, "The instruction of Dhruva Maharaj's mother, Suniti, was actually meant for fulfilling his desired objective. Therefore, after deliberate consideration, and with intelligence and fixed determination, he left his father's house." The great sage Narad heard this news, and understanding all activities of Dhruva Maharaj, he was struck with wonder. He approached Dhruva, and touching the boy's head with his all-virtuous hand, he spoke as follows: "How wonderful are the powerful Kshatriyas! They cannot tolerate even a slight infringement upon their prestige. Just imagine, this boy is only a small child, yet harsh words from his stepmother proved unbearable to him." The great sage Narad told Dhruv, "My dear boy, you are only a little boy whose attachment is to sports and other frivolities. Why are you so affected by words insulting your honor?"
Okay, so I didn't know, I don't know. It says that his tree-coloured eye, he knows past, present and future. And you can see into everybody's heart, just like the Supreme Lord. And then Prabhupada expands on that. He says it's like Krishna's in everybody's heart, and he can inform others, or he can direct through the heart all our activities. So it's like, how do we know where to take shelter of a spiritual master? He says, Brahman Brahmate Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Bhakti Latabhijat. The living entities wandering from the higher planets to the lower planets in different species of life. And by the mercy, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, he gets a spiritual master. So Krishna's in the heart, and when we're actually, when we start to become inquisitive about life, he's fulfilling all our desires. So especially when we start to become inquisitive about our existence in this world. So it's like that. And then he sends spiritual masters. So in that way, he said, Prabhupada says he sent Narada Muni to Dhruva Maharaj.
Narad Muni got a WhatsApp message, Maharaj.
What?
Narad Muni got a WhatsApp message.
A WhatsApp message, yeah. Yeah, why not? It comes in different ways. Okay, so carry on.
One second. My dear Dhruva, if you feel that your sense of honour has been insulted, you still have no cause for dissatisfaction. This kind of dissatisfaction is another feature of the illusory energy. Every living entity is controlled by his previous actions, and therefore there are different varieties of life for enjoying or suffering.
Yes, so first thing he told him, he said, you're just a young boy. This is not for you. You should just play now. When you grow up, you can take to this process. Even great sages have not been successful. So he was testing him. The spiritual master tests the disciple to see how serious they are. And then he said, it's just, and then he said, he gave another excuse, said it's karma. These things come and go, so we shouldn't be so affected by them. So carry on.
The process of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very wonderful. One who is intelligent should accept that process and be satisfied with whatever comes, favourable or unfavourable, by his supreme will. Now you have decided to undertake the mystic process of meditation under the instruction of your mother, just to achieve the mercy of the Lord. But in my opinion, such austerities are not possible for any ordinary man. It is very difficult to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes, so originally Saruchi was the one who told Dhruva you'll have to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Suniti's mother agreed that she's told you right. So that's what he's doing, he's going to the forest to take shelter. Okay.
Narad Muni continued. After trying this process for many, many births and remaining unattached to material contamination, placing themselves continually in trance and executing many types of austerities, many mystic yogis were unable to find the end of the path of God realization. For this reason, my dear boy, you should not endeavor for this. It will not be successful. It is better that you go home. When you are grown up, by the mercy of the Lord, you will get a chance for these mystic performances. At that time, you may execute this function. One should try to keep himself satisfied in any condition of life, whether distress or happiness, which is offered by the Supreme Will. The person who endures in this way is able to cross over the darkness of nescience very easily. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate toward him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of the material world. Dhruv Maharaj said, "My dear Lord Naradji, for a person whose heart is disturbed by the material conditions of happiness and distress, whatever you have so kindly explained for attainment of peace of mind is certainly a very good instruction. But as far as I am concerned, I am covered by ignorance, and this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart.
Okay.
My dear..." Oh,
Okay. So, who's next? Sorry, that's it. Well, here now, Dhruv gives an excuse why he can't do it. That, you know, he's a Kshatriya. His blood will boiling. Usually a child, if you actually insult him, he doesn't take it seriously. And if you actually glorify him, he doesn't really take that seriously either, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. But Dhruv Maharaj was, you know, he was, even though he was only young, you know, he was very much affected, just like an older person would be. And so he's going to, in the next few verses, we'll see how he tells the money that, you know, you're talking for a person who's on the Brahminical platform. He says, I can't do that. I'm actually a Kshatriya. I can't control my senses to do that. You've got to give me some other option. And so that's what he does. Okay. So, carry on.
Text 36. My dear Lord, I am very impudent for not accepting your instructions, but this is not my fault. It is due to my having been born in a Kshatriya family. My stepmother, Suruchi, has pierced my heart with her harsh words. Therefore, your valuable instruction does not stand in my heart. O learned Brahmana, I want to occupy a position more exalted than any yet achieved within the three worlds by anyone, even by my fathers and grandfathers. If you will oblige, kindly advise me of an honest path to follow by which I can achieve the goal of my life. My dear Lord, you are...
The devotee is asking for a honest path. He wants to, you know, because he's a devotee, he doesn't want to cheat. He wants to do something which is proper, you know, according to Shastra. But at least he accepts his position and he's working from that position. So that's our duty, is to, you know, understand our limits. And if we go beyond those limits, then we'll create havoc. So we stay, you know, we stay within our limits and work forward like that. What, you know, our conditioning, in other words. Gradually we get purified and the conditioning disappears. You know, it's like in the ocean. Anyway, carry on.
My dear Lord, you are worthy, son of Lord Brahma, and you travel playing on your musical instrument, the veena, for the welfare of the entire universe. You are like the sun, which rotates in the universe for the benefit of all living beings. The sage
just one thing, when I say we all know our limits is that we can try as hard as we can to practice devotional service. But, you know, within our particular psychophysical conditioning, that's what I'm saying. You know, some people need to get married, some people don't. Some people can work for themselves. Some people are not so good at that. You know, so we have to do, you know, we have to remain peaceful so that we can practice. That's the point. If we can't, you know, Krishna tries to create a peaceful situation in the world so we can actually go back to Godhead. So we shouldn't try and mess that up by doing the wrong things. Okay, carry on, sorry.
The sage Maitreya continued. The great personality Narad Muni, upon hearing the words of Dhruva Maharaj, became very compassionate towards him, and in order to show him his causeless mercy, he gave him the following expert advice. The great sage Narada told Dhruva Maharaj, the instruction given by your mother, Suniti, to follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is just suitable for you. You should therefore completely absorb yourself in the devotional service of the Lord. Any person who desires the fruits of the four principles, religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end liberation, should engage himself in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For worship of him, worship of his lotus feet yields the fulfillment of all of these. My dear boy, I therefore wish all good fortune for you. You should go to the bank of the Yamuna, where there is a virtuous forest named Madhuvan, and there be purified. Just by going there, one draws nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always lives there. Narad Muni instructed, my dear boy, in the waters of the Yamuna river, which is known as Kalindi, you should take 3 baths daily, because the water is very auspicious, sacred, and clear. After bathing, you should perform the necessary regulative principles for Ashtanga Yoga and then sit down on your asana sitting place in a calm and quiet position.
Okay. So that's for previous age, Ashtanga Yoga. So next is Haridas. Oh, Haridas, yeah.
Very well. What chapter are we on, sorry?
We're on 8.
8. Is that Canto 4, right?
Yeah.
Text 44, Prabhu.
44. After sitting on your seat, practice the 3 kinds of breathing exercises and thus gradually control the life air, the mind, and the senses. Completely free yourself from all material contamination, and with great patience, begin to meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 45. The form of the Lord is described herein. The Lord's face is perpetually very beautiful and pleasing in attitude. To the devotees who see him, he appears never to be displeased, and he is always prepared to award benedictions to them. His eyes, his nicely decorated eyebrows, his raised nose, and his broad forehead are all very beautiful. He is more beautiful than all the demigods. Text 46. Narada Muni continued, the Lord's form is always youthful. Every limb and every part of his body is properly formed, free from defect. His eyes and lips are pinkish, like the rising sun. He is always prepared to give shelter to the surrendered soul, and anyone so fortunate as to look upon him feels all satisfaction. The Lord is always worthy to be the master of the surrendered soul, for he is the ocean of mercy. Text 47. The Lord is further described as having the mark of Trivatsa, or the sitting place of the goddess of fortune, and his bodily hue is deep bluish. The Lord is a person. He wears a garland of flowers, and he is eternally manifest with 4 hands, which hold, beginning from the lower left hand, a conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower.
Okay, so I'll just recite. I've got them written down, all this quality. We'll go and then you can carry on reading when I.
Yep.
So 47, it says that he wears jewel crown and earrings, wears jewel necklace and bracelets, Kaustuva jewel around his neck, yellow silk clothes, a girdle round his waist with small bells on, shining golden anklets, most charming to look at and peaceful, pleasing to the eyes and the mind. The jewel-like nails of his lotus feet glittering, his hands on the whole of lotus of the heart of those who are worshipping him. Situated in the heart and intelligence of the jiva, meditate on the Lord, smiling, who looks very merciful towards the devotees. Meditate regularly with great attention on our greatest benediction. So that great attention, Prabhupada says, is for this age, it's our Maha Mantra. And so I think everybody can appreciate it really takes a lot of focus to chant properly. To go through 16 rounds and try and hear the whole Maha Mantra for all 16 rounds, that's what we're trying to do. And, if we really try to do that, it's like doing 1,000 years of Ashtanga yoga, how it feels like that. Sometimes you don't think, okay, I can go a bit faster now, and you start blabbering away, and then you lose it. Has anybody had that experience? So, really to knuckle down to this chanting is actually yoga. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And actually hear all the syllables. Okay. Where do we get to? So start with 52. Carry on.
52. One who meditates in this way, concentrating his mind upon the always auspicious form of the Lord, is very soon freed from all material contamination, and he does not come down from meditation upon the Lord. Text 53. O son of the king, now I shall speak unto you the mantra which is to be chanted with this process of meditation. One who carefully chants this mantra for 7 nights can see the perfect human beings flying in the sky.
So what are you on now, 54?
54, yeah.
Right. So maybe Mataji can read now.
Text 54. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is the 12-syllable mantra for worshipping Lord Krishna. One should install the physical forms of the Lord, and with the chanting of the mantra, one should offer flowers and fruits and other varieties of foodstuffs exactly according to the rules and regulations prescribed by authorities. But this should be done in consideration of place, time, and attendant conveniences and inconveniences. One should worship the Lord by offering pure water, pure flower garlands, fruits, flowers, and vegetables which are available in the forest, or by collecting newly grown grasses, small buds of flowers, or even the skins of trees, and if possible, by offering tulsi leaves, which are very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is possible to worship a form of the Lord made of physical elements such as earth, water, pulp, wood, and metal. In the forest, one can make a form with no more than earth and water and worship him according to the above principles. A devotee who has full control over himself should be very sober and peaceful and must be satisfied simply with eating whatever fruits and vegetables are available in the forest. My dear Dhruva, besides worshipping the deity and chanting the mantra 3 times a day, you should meditate upon the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different incarnations, as exhibited by his supreme will and personal potencies. One should follow in the footsteps of previous devotees regarding how to worship the Supreme Lord with the prescribed paraphernalia, or one should offer worship within the heart by reciting the mantra to the Personality of Godhead, who is non-different from the mantra. Anyone who thus engages in the devotional service of the Lord seriously and sincerely with his mind, words, and body, and who is fixed in the activities of the prescribed devotional methods, is blessed by the Lord according to his desire. If a devotee desires material religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation from the material world, he is awarded these results. If one is very serious about liberation, he must stick to the process of transcendental loving service, engaging 24 hours a day in the highest stage of ecstasy, and he must certainly be aloof from all activities of sense gratification.
Okay.
Dhruva Maharaj, the son of the king, and thus was advised by the great sage Narada. He circumambulated Narada with, his spiritual master, and offered him respectful obeisances. When he started for
Madhuvan.
which is always imprinted with the lotus footprints of Lord Krishna and which is therefore especially auspicious.
Okay. So, Jai Krishna, can you read? It goes to Madhuvan, one of the 12 forests of Vrindavan.
Shall I start then?
Yeah. Go on then.
Okay, after Dhruva entered Madhuvan forest to execute devotional service, the great sage Narad thought it wise to go to the king to see how he was faring within the palace. When Narad Muni approached, the king received him properly, offering him due obeisances. After being seated comfortably, Narad began to speak. Hang on. Okay. The great sage Narad inquired, "My dear king, your face appears to be withering up, and you look like you have been thinking of something for a very long time. Why is that? Have you been hampered in following your path of religious rites, economic development, and sense gratification?" The king replied, "O best of the Brahmins, I am very much addicted to my wife, and I am so fallen that I have abandoned all merciful behavior, even to my son, who is only 5 years old. I have banished him and his mother, even though he is a great soul and a great devotee. My dear Brahman, the face of my son was just like a lotus flower. I am thinking of his precarious condition. He is unprotected, and he might be very hungry. He might have lain down somewhere in the forest, and the wolves might have attacked him to eat his body. Alas, just see how I was conquered by my wife. Just imagine my cruelty. Out of love and affection, the boy was trying to get up on my lap, but I did not receive him, nor did I even pat him for a moment. Just imagine how hard-hearted I am." The great sage Narad replied, "My dear king, please do not be aggrieved by your son. He is well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although you have no actual information of his influence, his reputation is already spread all over the world. My dear king, your son is very competent. He will perform activities which would be impossible even for great kings and sages. Very soon he will complete his task and come back home. You should know that he will also spread your reputation all over the world." The great Maitreya continued, "The king Uttanapad, after being advised by Narad Muni, practically gave up all duties in relation with his kingdom, which is very vast and wide, opulent like the goddess of fortune, and he simply began to think of his son Dhruva. Elsewhere, Dhruva Maharaj, having arrived at Madhuvan, took his bath in the river Yamuna, and observing fasting in the night with great care and attention. After that, as advised by the great sage Narad, he engaged himself in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every third day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way, he progressed in the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days, and for his eatables he took dry grass and leaves. Thus he continued his worship. In the third month, he drank water only every 9 days. Thus he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by selected verses. In the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise, and thus he inhaled air only every 12th day. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the fifth month, Maharaj Dhruva, the son of the king, had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on only one leg, just as a column stands, without motion, and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. He completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind without diversion to anything else, upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation, and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble.
Okay. So next is Harsha.
Mara's question here.
Go on.
Says, when Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, how did he actually capture the Supreme?
Captured it in the heart. He meditated in Ashtanga Yoga on the heart. And the super soul's in the heart. So, you know, Krishna's attracted by devotion. He's captured by devotion.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
We're actually very devoted, then Krishna's conquered by that. Just like we're conquered by somebody who actually makes a fuss of us. You know what I mean? It's natural inclination.
That happens every day to me.
Hey?
Happens every day to me.
Yeah.
At work.
Okay.
That's why pure devotional service is so rare, because to get pure devotional service, it means Krishna comes under our control.
Hmm.
And it won't let happen to it. It won't do that so easily.
Yeah. What's the best way to do that? To hear about him.
Mm.
To humbly keep hearing about Krishna. You know, if somebody wants to keep hearing about us, then we'll be flattered, won't we? But you know, Krishna's not like that. But you know, obviously, when somebody's actually interested in him, then he takes notice. So we keep hearing about him. We could hear about so many things, but we're not doing that. We're hearing about Krishna, so he appreciates that. So he conquers. That's conquers Krishna. So keep hearing. Okay.
As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth, just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. When Dhruva Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness due to his fully concentrating and his closing all the holes of his body, the total universal breathing became choked up, and all the demigods in all the planetary systems felt suffocated and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods said, "Dear Lord, you are the refuge of all moving and non-moving living entities. We feel all living entities to be suffocating, their breathing processes choked up." Excuse me. Breathing processes choked up. We have never experienced such a thing. Since you are the ultimate shelter of all surrendered souls, we have therefore approached you. Kindly save us from this danger. The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, "My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It is due to the severe austerity and full determination of the son of King Uttanapada, who is now fully absorbed in thought of me. He has obstructed the universal breathing process. You can safely return to your respective homes. I shall stop this boy by his severe acts of austerities, and you will be saved from this situation."
Okay. So Mataji, we start on 9.
Chapter 9, Dhruva Maharaj returns home. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the demigods were thus reassured by the personality of Godhead, they were freed from all fears, and after offering their obeisances, they returned to their heavenly planets. Then the Lord, who is not different from the Sahasra Shirsha incarnation, got on the back of Garuda, who carried him to the Madhuvan forest and to see his servant Dhruva. The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaj, in his mature yogic process, was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. When Dhruva Maharaj saw his lord just in front of him, he was greatly agitated and offered him obeisances and respect. He fell flat before him like a rod and became absorbed in love of Godhead. Dhruva Maharaj, in ecstasy, looked upon the Lord as if he were drinking the Lord with his eyes, kissing the lotus feet of the Lord with his mouth, and embracing the Lord with his arms. Although Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy, he wanted to offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in suitable language. But because he was inexperienced, he could not adjust himself immediately. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, could understand Dhruva Maharaj's awkward position. Out of his causeless mercy, he touched his concha to the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of the Vedic conclusion and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all the living entities. In accordance with the line of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose fame is widespread, Dhruva, who in the future would receive a planet which would never be annihilated, even during the time of dissolution, offered his deliberate and conclusive prayers.
So, you know, we don't understand by our intellect, we have to understand by Krishna's mercy, that's the point. Even a young child like Guru Maharaj, he was given the intelligence. So, you know, devotional service is called a pratihata, a hoitaki, and a pratyahata. It cannot be interrupted by anything, and it's unmotivated. If we perform unmotivated devotional service, there's nothing can get in the way. And it's same with Prahlad Maharaj. You know, he was a Maha Bhagavat at 5 years old, and he was offering prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev. Nobody else dared go near him. So it's not the age that makes Maha Bhagavat, that's just a material identification. Yes, so, you know, we can all actually get Krishna's mercy if we have the right approach. Carry on.
Shall we give Ambada a chance to read?
Go on then, let that, Ambada Prabhu, can you carry on?
Yeah, definitely. Is it text 6?
Yeah.
Dhruva Maharaj, my dear Lord, you are all powerful. After entering within me, you have enlivened all my sleeping senses. My hands, legs, and ears touch sensation, life force, and especially my power of speech. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. My Lord, you are the Supreme One, but by your different energies you appear differently in the spiritual and the material world. You create the total energy of the material world by your external potency. And after creation, you enter within the material world as the super soul. You are the Supreme Person, and through the temporary modes of material nature, you create varieties of manifestation, just as fire entering into wood and different shapes burns brilliantly in different varieties. O my Master, Lord Brahma is fully surrendered unto you. In the beginning you gave him knowledge, and thus he could see and understand the entire universe, just as a person awakens from sleep and visualizes his immediate duties. You are the only shelter of all persons who desire liberation, and you are the friend of all who are distressed. How therefore can a learned person who has perfect knowledge ever forget you? Persons who worship you simply for the sense gratification of this bag of skin are certainly influenced by your illusory energy, in spite of having you, who are like a desire tree and are the cause of liberation from birth and death. Foolish persons such as me desire benedictions from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions.
Yes, so that's why
My Lord, the transcendental bliss.
Well, just a minute. So that Prabhupada was saying many, many times in his lectures that we should only aspire for, you know, unmotivated, pure devotional service. Says Krishna will give us what we want. He's very merciful. He's very accommodating. But if we perform, you know, mixed devotional service, it means we come back, we get another body. So he said we should aim for pure devotional service. So, you know, he doesn't interfere with our freedom, but, you know, we're getting all the information we need now in order to do that. We just have to, you know, the penny has to drop. You know, there's nothing else worth doing. At the end of the day, you know, it's just a mental, everything we do in this world is just a mental concoction, and we enjoy it on the mental platform. And it's just like one thing after another after another. And so, you know, we have to control the mind. And this is what Dhruva Maharaj did successfully. That's why he's got the audience of Lord Vishnu. And so, you know, it's possible for us. When we actually focus on something, we get a taste. So if we can keep remembering that all we have to do is keep focusing on the holy name, eventually we'll be successful. And we shouldn't be disturbed if we can't do it straight away, but we should keep trying, that's the thing. That's our work in this world, to keep trying to hear the holy name. Okay, we can continue next week on text 10. Anything else? No? Okay, so...
A quick comment, Maharaj. Isn't it amazing that Dhruva saw the Lord within 6 months of getting instructions?
I mean, you know, one devotee asked Prabhupada, he said, how long did it take to become Krishna conscious? And Prabhupada said, immediately. And then he didn't say anything else. He made a point of making that, you know, everybody like focus on that. It's up to you, you can do it immediately. He was only 5 years old, he went to the forest, he was so determined, he was determined for the wrong reason. So whatever makes us determined, that's what matters, because eventually, whatever reason we're doing it for will be purified. But somehow or other we have to do the needful and, you know, focus on the, in our case, on the holy name, or focus on the Lord in the heart, in Dhruva Maharaj's case. And, you know, we shouldn't worry about the motivations which are there, they'll go away. They'll naturally go away, it'll become distasteful. So it's a very simple process, anybody can take to it. You know, a 5-year-old, you know, Sri Sudha Dvijabandhanam, anybody, whatever the situation, there's no material, no material bar.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, see you next week. Maybe somebody on Sunday. What we're doing on Sundays, we're having first hour is exam, and then from 10 o'clock by 11, we're reading. So if anybody exams and they want to join us for the second half, it's 10 o'clock or thereabouts, like that. And then we'll do that the following week. And that'll be the end of the Bhakti Shastri. And then you've got a week to get everything in. So now it's time to make some.
We've got Harinam on Saturday.
Oh, yes.
Just to,
Harinam in the centre of Manchester. Sit down, Harinam.
with His Holiness Dyananda Maharaj.
Well, not we do. There's about half a dozen of us usually. And bring your masks.
And your wet wipes. And your wet wipes.
Your wet wipes and your mask. Actually, you know, it's like we're here in the fresh air, you know, everybody's sat a couple of yards apart, and there's not much risk. It doesn't seem like that. But anyway, it's nice.
I bet Dhruva Maharaj would have come.
Yeah, he'd have come. I tell you something, when you've been on a Harinam, the next day your jappa's like really good jappa, innit? You know what I mean? You're bouncing off the walls.
Maharaj, the new government rule is that you can only have 6 people gathered. Is that going to affect the Harinam?
No.
Anyway, listen, what do you call a group, you know? If you're 2 yards apart, it's not a group, is it? You know, if you go into the centre of Manchester and everybody's 2 yards apart,
Yeah.
what can they do about it? You know what I mean? That's the main thing. Anyway,
The police is very favourable.
yeah, the police come and join in. They're into it. Don't worry about that. Let's come to one in Leeds. What do you think?
We'll have to organise one in Leeds, yes.
I mean, it's okay. There's normally only 6 of us anyway.
That's true.
That's right, yeah. Okay, but if you want to invite us over to Leeds, you're welcome. Okay, and we might do one in Swaddling Court soon. We'll enliven Jack Bordell. All right.
Have one in his honour.
And then we'll come over to Chester. Where is it? North Wales. Llandudno, is it? Prestatyn area.
Yeah, I always imagined there'd be something that would go on that north coast. I just always thought something would happen.
Yeah. We'll go down Rill Promenade.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
In the middle of winter.
We did chanting in, is it really Prestatyn?
Prestatyn.
We did chanting in Prestatyn, so.
There's a yoga shala down there. We've done a couple of programs in, where's that? That's Prestatyn, isn't it?
Yogi Lee.
Yogi Lee.
Yeah.
The next class.
What's happened to Yogi Lee? I ain't heard of him.
Oh, he's still busy. He's busy doing his yoga. Need to go down and do something.
How's the yoga going off in Leeds? It's still thriving.
Still online, so yeah.
Is it? Oh, is it online?
Yeah,
Cool.
it is at the moment.
And the,
Yeah.
and the studio that was in
Oh,
the
nice.
centre is closed down now,
Yeah. So
unfortunately.
tough times, but at least we can do it online.
All good things must come to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll find somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, everybody.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.